Hi there, so this is my video review because it's highly unlikely I'll get a chance to write a proper blog entry or similar of the Taulman Bridge product. Now I can't show you the roll because it's currently printing and the printer's behind me, and I'll pick up the camera in a minute and show you what it's printing, but I thought I'd just do a bit of blurb on the product itself and what its close cousins are and what differentiates it and so on and so forth. So this is a product from Taulman. I've been lucky enough to get a review copy from Tom March from Taulman, yeah, so I've been putting it to good use recently, printing fingers, and in fact that's what I've been doing with the 618 product as well, printing prosthetic fingers for a chap called Bob Roth in the States, which has been certainly educational for me with respect to nylon printing, because I never tried to do nylon printing that's been so intricate up until this point. So it's been quite an interesting experience, and particularly stuff that's required supports, which is also a thing that I've never done with nylon. So it's been a very good learning experience for me. Anyway, so I had an opportunity to do some testing with Bridge, and I've also been playing around with 618 quite a lot recently, so it's been a good opportunity for me to do some comparisons. So without further ado, I thought I'd just show you the other sort of two Taulman products to start with, which are 645 and 618. So 618 is sort of the more ubiquitous one, and the one that I use most at the moment, principally because people sort of say that 645 is a bit more challenging than 618, which has been a bit daunting. But what am I going to say here? So I've got three bits here. I've got a piece of 618, a piece of 645, and a piece of Bridge. Now you may be able to see straight away, if I offer these three up against each other, they have varying different degrees of opacity, and the Bridge stuff sits somewhere between the 618 and the 645 here. Yeah, so beyond that, there's not much in it. Certainly the Bridge feels a little bit less flexible than the 645 in particular, and to some degree the 618 as well. I guess that's something to do with the material properties that they've applied to it, because it's a slightly different copolymer from 645 and 618. Anyway, so the reason why Taulman have produced this product is to overcome some of the trickier aspects of printing with nylon, and I believe they've reduced the cost as well, which is great. And so the things that are most challenging when printing nylon really boil down to two sort of principal things. One is that you need a specific surface onto which to print particularly large parts, because it contracts quite heavily as it cools, and that tends to cause parts to peel off the print bed, and so you need something onto which it can adhere quite strongly to make sure that doesn't occur. And so that's this stuff that all this stuff is sitting on, a product called Garolite, or this is in fact an equivalent called Tufnol, which is what you tend to find in Australia and New Zealand. I live in New Zealand, so that's what this is here. So printing on Garolite with nylon certainly means that you get good adhesion, and in fact the adhesion is often a little too good. So I've probably got some, here we go. So that's the kind of mess you get with Garolite after a couple of dozen prints, is the nylon occasionally will stick so well it actually starts tearing the surface off the Garolite, and you can see in a few cases here I've not bothered pulling this off because this is actually a dud sheet. And one of the other issues is, in my case, because I'm using very thin sheets of Garolite, is finding something to which you can stick it even with a strong epoxy, where after time it doesn't actually start getting pulled off. So the reason why I don't use this one anymore is that the sheet is actually no longer properly adhered to the piece of aluminium it's sitting on underneath. So yeah, it's it makes it a bit of a challenge, and you have to, obviously, if you're printing different materials, you have to swap out for a Garolite sheet when you've gone from glass or whatever, so it's a bit of a challenge. So one of the principal things that they've done with Bridge is to make whatever changes they've done, and I have no idea what sort of chemically they've done to this stuff, to allow you to print on a glass surface just with a PVA solution applied to that. So PVA is, your pretty ubiquitous kind of water soluble wood glue. And in my case I've been using a diluted version contained in this jar here, so that's 50/50, and I've been just applying that with a rag, in fact, just spreading it across the print bed, letting it dry out and then printing onto it. And certainly for small parts it's working quite successfully. I had a couple of challenges with large pieces where I had quite a thick bottom sort of solid infill of in fact the one that failed catastrophically was 1 millimeter thick, and it just seemed that that was just too much for the PVA to work with. But I haven't tried different sort of solutions of it yet, so I can't comment on whether or not there's an optimal. I'm sure people will get there eventually. But for small pieces it sticks very well. It comes off great once the bed's cooled down, and incidentally I'm using a bed that's about 70 degrees centigrade in temperature, and it seems to stick very nicely on that. So which is great because it means you don't have to keep on changing the bed surface every time you swap materials, and obviously you don't have these problems with Garolite where the damn stuff peels off or you destroy it when you're trying to get the nylon off because it sticks so well. So that's one of the principal changes. The other one is that they've managed to make some sort of surface treatment with the bridge, and this may be one of the reasons why it's slightly more opaque than 645, that allows it to be much more resistant to absorbing moisture from the air. So both 645 and 648 are crazy hydrophilic. Like, they will absorb moisture from the air even in non-humid conditions, to the extent where it significantly affects print quality, and it can do that pretty quickly, sort of within 24 hours. So you can never leave your rolls out in the sort of an open environment and expect the print quality to be as good after 24 hours unless you're in a desert, basically. So it does make it a bit of a challenge, and obviously it means you can't just pick up a roll and stick it in the printer and get going. You've got to go and dry the damn stuff out, and that normally means sticking it in the oven for a couple of hours. And if you're disorganized like I am, that normally sort of makes it a bit of a barrier to using the damn stuff, because I never think about it in advance. So I've been having to do that recently because I've been printing a lot of fingers for a chap called Bob Roth, who lives in the States, and he's seems to be a bit of a genius when it comes to designing prosthetics and articulated joints and stuff. So this is an uncleaned up finger that I printed in 618 a few days ago, and just because the 618 hadn't been dried out, it actually came out a bit manky on the surface finish. Isn't very good in a few pieces. One of the things about water absorption with 618 is it very quickly affects the surface quality, although from a strength perspective it doesn't seem to have much of a detrimental effect. Anyway, so not the prettiest piece there, and it sounds very nicely, so it will come out pretty good. And I've got some better ones in this bucket here of bits that I've got, but I won't bother trying to show you those now because this is about bridge. So bridge comes out much more nicely. Just immediately from its print quality, I noticed an immediate improvement from the point of view of what I was getting in print quality. It also actually produces very nice overhangs, so there's a lot of this stuff that's been printed without support, and so that must be getting on for the edge of this bit here must be, I don't know, pretty close to 30 degrees, 40 degrees off vertical, and yeah, no issues, none of the sort of surface features you could expect with ABS or something if you did the same thing, or at least in some forms of ABS. And there's no cooling going on here, so I've got no fans blowing on this, so it just behaves itself pretty nicely when it comes to overhangs. You'll also hopefully notice, and it's a real nightmare to see this stuff because it's quite optically clear and seems to glow quite a lot in the light, that you should hopefully be able to see this stuff has actually got supports on it. And so I found the same thing with nylon, is you can actually print with supports, you just have to get your slicer set up properly. But just to show you how this pans out, so there's a piece of support structure here, a pair of pliers. Now the great thing about nylon is you don't have to tiptoe too much around protecting the actual printed piece, because the damn stuff's so strong, you can just really go at it with the pliers, pull the supports away, and there we go. So I need to get a bit more out of here, and be one of those situations where I end up stabbing myself with a tool because I'm trying to do it on the camera. There we go. So that's obviously without any cleanup. You know, it could do with a bit of sanding, and nylon incidentally takes a bit of fine grit sandpaper pretty well, and there's another bit to pull off. So yeah, there we go. So the supports on this stuff come out quite nicely, which is great, because this part in particular, Bob, for all of his genius in designing these little articulated joints, as far as I can see, hasn't had much experience designing stuff to be printed. So this printed in without supports would be almost impossible, and with supports it's a bit of a challenge, and with nylon that's even more of a challenge. But in the case of bridge, it's come out beautifully. So yeah, bridge, I mean, I can go on and on, but I want to try and keep this close to 10 minutes, and I'm just about to hit that. So the product as a whole is a great step on from 618. It solves the two principal issues as far as I could see with 618, which is bed adhesion and moisture absorption. Yeah, it prints, as far as I can see, just as well as 618 when it is perfectly dry. And when 618 is pretty dry, it does print really nicely. So anyway, so I thought before I go any further, there's a few more bits here, but you know, the same deal from the point of view of the bed is that I just pick the camera up and I shall take it over here. And so here is 3 more fingers that I'm just printing at the moment on my printer, the Ingentis with a Kraken hot end. Yeah, so you can see it going right now. So that's bridge printing right away, and hopefully I can get close enough so you can see the kind of quality of the parts as they print. Hopefully it will focus enough for you to see it. There we go. So yeah, they come out very nicely. The infill is very clean. These are 0.015 millimeter layer heights, and yeah, to summarize, I'm pretty damn pleased with it. I'm certainly going to be buying more if I can't convince Tom to give me any for free, but I suspect I've probably sort of done my dash in that regard. So yeah, I'm going to be buying more of this stuff, yeah, absolutely massive step on from Nylon. And oh, the thing I should say before I go any further, and if this isn't already obvious to people, I do apologise. One of the principal things about all nylon products is how damn strong they are. This stuff is really, really tough compared to PLA or ABS. It's hard to describe it, but I mean I don't really want to damage this part beyond repair, because oh, here we go. I've got another bit here that I did earlier, which is a bit more of a rough one, because I screwed up some slicing settings, so this one won't be going to Bob. But just to give you a feel for this stuff, this is me applying significant pressure to this part with a pair of pliers, and for all the fact that I've managed to screw up the edge a little bit there, you can see that just by, in fact, just me adjusting it back, because it's got some flex to it, it's pretty much still workable and usable there. And so this stuff is so strong, the interlayer bonding is pretty much just as strong as the plastic itself, so trying to separate this stuff on a layer level is almost impossible, which makes it extremely useful from the point of view of being able to put a drill through it, using it for any of these purposes like prosthesis, which is basically what this stuff is being used for, and a whole range of other sort of tasks where the kind of conventional 3D printing plastics for FDM anyway, which is ABS and PLA, just don't stand up to the punishment, or the high impact versions are so expensive it's prohibitive. So yeah, that concludes my review of Taulman Bridge. I hope you have all got something out of it. So yeah, that's it. Cheers.